There once was a man who could only walk in straight lines. It was terribly challenging for him because he kept bumping into things. Finally, he sought help, went to his doctor. He said, "Doctor, you got to help me. I'm only able to walk in a straight line. I keep running into things, and I get stuck in corners. Can you help me?" "Of course," replied the doctor. "I can give you a prescription for a drug called cyclobendalat." "Cyclo what?" asked the straight shooter. "Cyclobendalat," returned the confident doctor. "It'll have you going in circles in no time." "Then I'll take it," said the patient. A few weeks later, the doctor saw her patient and asked him how he was doing. "Great," replied the patient. "That medicine has done wonders," he said. "I feel like I finally turned a corner." All right, there it is, the joke of the week. Today's sermon on the myth of the straight line is a part of a series of sermons based on my book entitled The Emergence of God, the Intersection of Science, Nature, and Spirituality. In that book, I have pointed out that we have certain persistent yet false cultural fables that continue to affect our lives. And today I want to talk about the myth of the straight line. We humans love straight lines. We think they make our lives easier. How many times have you heard it said that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line? Or an object in motion tends to remain in motion along a straight line. We expect lines to be able to predict where things will go. We expect them to help make things predictable. We expect them to make our lives easier. But most lives are messy and often follow along wavy arcs that could never have been seen or predicted. Our lives, like many things, do not follow a straight line. When I was a young child, I wanted to be a psychologist because I wanted to understand people. But when I went to visit a psychologist in my neighborhood, and he told me that all he did was wake up in the middle of the night to answer desperate phone calls, I changed my mind. One day, my parents gave me a trumpet, and much to their dismay, I loved to play it loudly. I decided then that music was going to be my life, also to great dismay to my parents. But all through college, when I was not practicing my horn or writing music, I was studying religion. And after more than 20 years as a professor of music, I realized I wanted to study for the ministry. And here I am. Life rarely moves in clear and straight lines. There's a terrible story we tell our teenagers, which says basically that if you go to college, choose a career, get a good job, buy a house, raise a family, you will live happily ever after. It makes it sound like our path in life is a clear, straight line, and that happiness is guaranteed at the end of the path, but rarely do our lives take such a direct route. More often, it's like a ball in a pinball game bouncing between bumpers. The reality is that straight lines are two-dimensional human constructs imposed on a three-dimensional world. Yet lines appear everywhere. Look around you. The walls reach straight up to the ceilings, which is flat, mostly, and even. The chairs you sit in are arranged in straight rows. The hymnals you sing from have straight lines on the outside and the inside. And as you look up and see me here, you see straight lines everywhere. The computer, the pulpit, the microphone, all over. If you walk out of this building, you can see more straight lines. There are long and tall poles, electrical cables, phone towers, and signs. Lots of signs with all kinds of significant lines painted on them. But did you notice something about all the things I just mentioned? They're all human-made. The British architect William Kent, who is said to be the originator of the home garden, once said that nature abhors a straight line. Nature, of course, doesn't abhor anything. But it is clear that straight lines are not natural. We may claim to see straight lines in nature, such as when we look at the Earth's horizon or the surface of a crystal, but usually those things are part of an illusion. The horizon we see at the ocean or across a prairie sky is actually a very tiny part of a very large circle. And though the molecules of a crystal like to line up together, those lines are usually fractured and uneven. And the molecules that make up the crystal have no straight lines themselves. Nature abounds in curves, spirals, fractals, not in straight lines. And the reason for this is that curvilinear shapes allow for growth, expansion, and creativity, while lines do not. I want to show you a piece of art that all of you probably know. So I have to do my tech thing here. Yeah, you know this one, right? Everybody knows this one. It's The Scream by Edvard Munch. If you take a look at it, there's a pathway and there's a railing. Those are very straight. But everything else, the river, the sky, and the people are all curves. So the nature part is all curves and winding lines, whereas the man-made part is all straight. Lines are used to make clear and distinct separations. Lines make divisions. Lines imply direct cause and effect. Lines force us to choose between this or that, but nature doesn't work that way. Everything in nature is made up of spectrums of change. You can find many examples of things that seem to be in opposition to each other, but are really just endpoints of a process of change. When exactly does day become night? When it's completely dark? Is the night sky ever completely dark? When exactly does one become old? My daughter says I am old, but my octogenarian friends at the coffee shop say I am young. That is why I drink a lot of coffee. Where does the mind end and the body begin? Do you really think my mind cannot influence my body, or that my body does not affect my mind? There are no clear lines between these things. How do you define any of these polarities depends on their relationship to whatever you are comparing them with. Lines create the appearance of false but separate dyads. Day and night, young and old, mind, and body are just a few of the many things we try to divide, but which are in reality just opposite points within a long continuum. Here's another example: science and religion. There have been many heated battles between scientists and theologians claiming that each knows the truth. But it is possible that the truth is both religious and scientific. Both have value and significance. Science can help us bring safe and nutritious food to our tables, but it cannot add significance to that meal in the same way that a Seder, the Eucharist, the meal at the end of Ramadan, or a Sunday family dinner does. Science teaches us about life, while religion teaches us how to live. Science and religion are not binary dyads separated by a clear straight line. They are more like 2 points that hold up either side of a cosmic hammock with lots of intertwining strings between them. The straight line we impose in our thinking can cause us a lot of trouble because it creates division where separation might not actually exist. Lines can also create square boxes in which we throw things and categorize them. Boxes can then be moved and stacked so that some things become higher or more significant. Boxes create false classifications that may be convenient for labeling, but which do not reflect reality. Consider all the package labels we add to such things as gender, sexuality, religious perspective, race, class, political affiliation, and on and on and on. All of these things fall within a spectrum of possibilities, yet we insist on locking people into one definitive box or another. Gender, for example, exists on a spectrum. People experience their own gender in a complex variety of ways, and those ways can be expressed in a complex variety of relationships. We know that years of trying to force the spectrum of sexuality and gender into 2 distinct boxes has caused harm and suffering. Same can be said for race and class. The distinctions and labels made in each of these areas are designed to separate and prioritize one classification over another, and in each case, those divisions are false. All of the universe is a whole. Everything is constantly becoming something else, and everything contains a little bit of its own opposite within itself. Nothing is purely one separate, unconnected thing. Boxes exist only in the imagination. Straight lines are an illusion. In reality, we are all wonderfully beautiful, evolving, squishy blobs of uniqueness, swirling about in an even greater and more beautiful blob of creative wonder. We are each moving through fascinating and challenging curvilinear pathways forward. And I hope you enjoy the journey. In the name of that which you hold in your heart to be most sacred, may it be so.